Sweet.
Okay, ready? Ready. Awesome. All right. So, thank you guys for coming. I'm Jeff Folgate with Santa Fe County Fire Department, and I have been in the fire service for working on 37 plus years. So, started off in the military with fire department, and then from there I went to a city department in Texas, where I worked almost 30 years, and then retired from there, came here, and now I'm with Santa Fe County. One of the biggest things that I've learned from all of those years in the fire service is that the statistics and the science behind fire doesn't lie. And so when we fund fire departments really well, right? So we buy multi-million-dollar trucks, and we put them in multi-million-dollar stations, and then we staff people. But at the end of the day, when we look at some of the statistics, where we're really not putting our efforts is towards education, and that is teaching you guys how to be safe. Because at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is who's going to save you is yourselves. We can get there and we can do some things, and we do a lot of great things. We do 80% of our job now is medical, so medical calls and things like that. But when it comes to fire and fire safety, a lot of that responsibility falls on you folks. So today we're going to talk specifically about fire and life safety for RV users. This is really, when Valerie approached me about this, I was like, this is a really interesting topic because it's not something I've ever delved into. At one point in my life, I had a little pop-up, and that was my experience with RV life. But just digging through the data and looking to see what's out there as far as RV fire and life safety goes, there's not a lot of information. So really some really good information to share, and what we hope to do is possibly take this and share it with other RV users as well. So just excited to have the opportunity. So starting off, a few things that we want to talk about. So did you know fires burn hotter and faster today compared to 40 years ago? Anybody know why that is? Any guesses? Plastic. That's a key one, right? So things that we have now are synthetics, right? So synthetic materials. 40 years ago, our furnishings were built more out of solid oaks and things like that, as far as framing and how we built stuff. A lot of cotton, a lot of fibrous material that was natural, and over the years we've gotten away from that. And so when you think about the inside of your RV, the inside of your RV is also going to be the same way. It's not going to have a lot of natural materials. It's going to have a lot of synthetic materials. Everything from the bedding that you're laying on, to the coverings on the couches, to the way the tables are made, right? That whole inside is full of synthetic material. Lightweight construction. Do we have lightweight construction in RV use? Very much so, right? So, because again, we don't want heavy. It becomes a hazard trying to pull. So lightweight construction, open floor plans. You're pretty open in an RV. You're basically one big rectangular box with maybe a door that separates the bathroom or separates the bedroom area, but that's going to be it. So those reasons are why today we're seeing hotter and faster fires. In the 1970s, now this statistic is going to be for residential, but I could almost guarantee you, again, just my experiences with fire and being in the industry for so long, that these are going to be right in line with RV use as well. So in the 1970s, you had 17 minutes on average to escape a home fire. What are we talking about there? So we're talking about the incipient stage of the fire. From the time the fire starts, whether it be smoking material on the couch that flames up, whether it be a candle that ignites something, something on the stove, what have you, from the time that starts until the fire grows to a progression of what we call flashover. Flashover in the fire world is basically when everything superheats within that confined room of origin or area of origin and ignites all at one time. And so that is a very unsurvivable condition. A firefighter in full turnout gear wearing an air pack is not going to survive flashover. So we're talking about all of a sudden having this spontaneous whoosh, and that's flashover. 17 minutes to get to flashover from that small flame. What do we think today we have? Give me some guesses.
Half.
Half of that? So you're gonna say maybe 8-9 minutes? Any other guesses? Would you be surprised if I told you today you have 3 to 5 minutes? And that's not just an RV. If you live in a residential home, 3 to 5 minutes. And it's all because of the synthetic materials, the lightweight construction, the open floor planning that we now have. We don't compartmentalize fire anymore. Fire statistics, fire fatalities are actually on the rise in the past years. They're not on the decline like you would expect. You would think with technology and with us just being more informed and smarter people than we were a decade ago, that we would be going the other way. Fire fatalities are actually on the rise, and it's because of this. So let's get into some RV statistics. So these statistics, which I've got, where I pulled this from, I've got copies for anybody that wants to, you want some light reading and you want to read into these fire stats a little bit more. This is coming from here. So, and I'm just going to cover a few of them that I found really interesting. So from 2018 to 2020, that's where these stats are coming from. Estimated average of 4,200 RV fires reported in the U.S. to U.S. fire departments each year. These fires resulted in, and this is what interested me, 4,200 is not a lot, but of that 4,200, you had 15 fatalities, and you had 125 injuries, and $60 million in loss. So that's an incredible stat to me, which tells me when things go bad in an RV, things go really bad in an RV. And in fact, when we were talking, Valerie, you had 2 examples of fatalities that you know that have happened within this area.
Indeed. That's what started this talk and why we asked you to come out.
So it happens. But the great thing is there's things we can do to eliminate that chance. Of the 4,200 RV fires in these statistics, 85% were self-propelled. So I'd asked you guys earlier, do you drive or you're pulling behind, right? So 85% for the driving one. So you can see my. All right. So self-propelled, the picture on the right, 85%. And then when we look at the next stats, that will make sense. 15% the tow behinds. Yes, ma'am.
I can ask a question on that. Those fires in the self-propelled, then is it an engine fire that starts them instead of in the?
That's a great question. Let's look at this.
All right. Give me a minute. I'll get to it, Kathy.
RV fires most often started in engines, right? So engine, if you look at the first line, engine area, running gear, wheel area, 26.2% of the time. Followed by miscellaneous vehicle fire, so other vehicle area, 15.7, doesn't really break it down any further than that. And then property operator, passenger areas, 9% was the next one, and then kind of slows down after that a little bit. Interestingly, though, if you look at number 4, cooking area, right? So, to be expected, home fires, number 1 cause, unattended cooking. Year after year after year after year, unattended cooking is the number 1 cause of home fires. So, we easily are distracted, right? Phone rings, the washer dings, we gotta go change the clothes out, what have you. We step outside and we leave whatever on the stove top. RV fires most frequently occur during the afternoon. So this one is completely different from residential fires. Your peak time, 2 to 3 p.m. And if we look, we've got a little spike right here from 11 o'clock to noon. Makes sense. That would be maybe your cooking time, cooking hour, lunch hour, you're on the stove. And then it peaks up, goes down, and then peaks again for the rest of the afternoon. I would have expected this to have been more in the evenings, but it wasn't. It was in the middle of the afternoon.
Driving.
Driving? Could be. That could absolutely be why it was, because you're on the road at that time. And then if you look at again, 85% engine compartments, right, wheel bearings, things like that. This one, pretty, I would say, you had to guess. This would be the one that you would guess. RV fires peaked in July, 11%, and occurred most often during the months of May through August. So right now, we're in our peak of RV fires. This one, not a good statistic, but the average number of fatalities per 1,000 RV fires, almost 4%. So per 1,000 fires, 4% number of injuries per 1,000, 16.3 amount of dollar lost per RV fire, 15,350. All right, so enough of the statistics. Real briefly, we're going to cover some interior and exterior stuff that we want to look for, and then we'll delve into it in a little more depth. So, conducting routine maintenance on a motorhome can make your RV camping trip more enjoyable by freeing you from worry and reducing the chances of potential mishaps. So, doing a quick exterior check, right? So what are some things that we want to look for? Exterior lights, turn signals, brake lights, etc. Obviously, common sense plays into a lot of this, but making sure that those things are working. Checking brakes and tires. So brake fluid, brake pads, adjusting those as needed. Properly inflated, uneven wear or dry rot on tires can cause issues. It's a low tire will heat up and it'll heat the surrounding area. So not having a properly inflated tire not only is going to pull you down as far as your miles per gallon, but it's also a higher risk now of starting a fire within that wheel area. Checking wheel bearings and servicing as needed. This is a biggie. This is one of the things that I think that I'm not sure how often that gets done. But again, if you guys are in the business of RV sales and maintenance, do you see a lot of this? Issues with this?
Yeah, we do a lot of wheel packs for sure, absolutely.
Okay, which is a great thing, right? Because a dry wheel bearing will overheat pretty quickly going down the road.
We also replace a lot of axles when people don't do enough bearing packs.
And luckily you're just replacing the axle versus replacing the whole unit because you ended up with a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Check compartments for rodent damage and nests, especially during the off season. Especially here in New Mexico, we have the issue with what are those little rats that we have?
Kangaroo rats.
Pack rats. Yes, kangaroo rats, pack rats. Yes, getting into compartments and nesting, and also they're well known to chew wires and cause issues. So chewing wires within some of those areas that wires are being run within some of the compartments, chewing them, nesting in them. So not only the nesting material being a place that could start the fire, but also if they chew those wires and you start getting a short. And again, thinking about you're traveling down the road, things are moving and shaking, and so you can end up with a lot of arcing and sparking. Not the example here, but that can be a fire cause. So inspect propane tanks. So check hoses, wears, and cracks. Check the cylinders, look for rust and damage, and then see if the tanks need to be recertified. And again, we've got a slide where we're going to cover a little more detail when it comes to propane tanks. All right, so going to the inside, probably one of the greatest things you can do, read your owner's manuals. Right? How many of us have actually read them? A few of us have, a lot of us don't. They come with the RV and they are in that one drawer, and they probably sit within that one drawer. but there's a lot of good and useful information in there. And you know, if you're on the road, one of us is driving, the other one can be reading those owner manuals. Check for recalls. This is a biggie. We're going to delve a little more into this in another slide. But check for recalls within the units that you have. Test all your life safety equipment. Fire extinguishers, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. Consider, like if you're seasonal with your RV, changing those batteries and those smoke alarms before you leave. You know, go to the store, grab a couple of 9 volts, get those things replaced so that you're good for the year and you're good for that trip, and you're not going to have to be concerned with those things doing what they do, especially when they do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is inevitably when they chirp. Keep doors and windows clear for escape and make sure they open easily. Specifically, we're talking about the escape windows that you're going to find in your RV trailers. All right, so real quick little video. Just this is, you'll see our model in here, Miss Valerie. Job, Valerie. Any takeaways from what we did? Any things that you want to point out? We'll talk about some of those things. But.
Well, the first thing when he said I needed to discharge it, I found out I've never discharged one and I didn't know how to do it. So it was a good experience to learn.
Yeah.
And then you don't have a whole lot of time spraying. I mean, it was out pretty quick. I couldn't believe how fast it ran out. So if you think about how quick fires start and how quickly they spread, you don't have very much time with that fire extinguisher.
No. In fact, I timed that, and from the time you push down to the time you kind of ended was about 14 seconds. So not a lot of extinguisher there. 14 seconds is not a lot of time. But again, we'll talk a little more in depth about that. Some other things is like, you notice the extinguisher that was in its cabinet in the side there, that was actually behind a little swivel chair. So not, if you don't really take mind where these things are at, you really need to think about where is that extinguisher. The other thing, did you notice how when she was trying to get it out, how there was a little bit of a struggle? The struggle was real. Mm-hmm. I tried it too, and I struggled. And it was like, this is hard to get this off. Mm-hmm. I'm sure by design, because again, this is meant for travel and moving around, so they don't want you to easily be able to get that out. But the thing is, can you get yours out? And make sure that you can. So try, the ones that you have, make sure that you can get those straps off and get to that extinguisher. That one also was missing the pin, but we'll talk about that. And then the last thing was opening the doors. So in the video, you saw her open the exit, right, the emergency exit, which was actually pretty easy because that was the second time we opened it. The very first time we opened it, it was like stuck because that window hadn't been open. So again, you know, in the middle of you sleeping in that compartment at 3 o'clock in the morning, smoke alarm's going off and the smoke is coming in, that's not the time to discover, you know, is this window kind of sealed shut or can we get it open pretty easily? So fire extinguishers, again, you know, just getting that strap off was a bit of a challenge, so make sure that you can get your straps off. This one, you'll notice right here was where the safety pin should be, which would look similar to this. So make sure that you do have that safety pin in place. And then also this one has the green test top, just like that one, but it hadn't been tested, and so when she and I put our thumb on it to try and push it down, we couldn't do it with our thumb. We had to, actually I think I used my pocket knife and then kind of pushed it down a little bit first, and then once we got it loose, then we could test it with our finger. But again, it's telling me that they hadn't been tested, it hasn't been tested in a long time. So again, food for thought for you when it comes to some of these safety things with your own RVs. So have a portable fire extinguisher on board that you can easily reach. Inspect the gauge or push the green test button. So some of them, depending on what you have in your RV, they're going to have a gauge. And if it has the gauge, you'll notice that there's an area where it's green. It needs to be in the green. If it's past the green and overcharged, or if it's down below and it's not charged, then they need to be serviced or replaced. So you want to make sure that it's in the green. That's the only way to test these type, or really to know, is to look at that. The other one, again, you notice this one's missing its pin, right? So, or just, yeah, it is missing its pin. So you make sure that they have the safety pins in place. This is a different one, it's a bigger model. But again, this is the Deluxe Super 10. Circa, I don't know. But again, if we look at it, it's you know, it has no pressure. So most likely, if we take both of these extinguishers outside and we try to discharge these, they're probably not going to work. Take a brief training course on how to properly use a fire extinguisher. So remember the acronym: pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. So you're going to pull, so if it has the pin in it, the very first thing you want to do is you're going to pull that pin. So on these ones, on this style of pin, you're just going to pull it straight out. If you have the type that has like a metal pin in it, and then it has like a little plastic strap, the best thing to do to break that strap is to just give it a twist. That will break that little plastic strap, and then it will come out. And that's going to be on the type that are metal. And then the other thing again, so testing this type, because it doesn't have a gauge, you're just pushing down on that little green lever, or little green tab at the top, and making sure that it springs back up. So that's the pressure test for these type. Only attempt to use a fire extinguisher if the fire is still in its incipient stage. So we talked about incipient stage earlier. So the very, very beginnings of that fire, the very first few minutes of that fire. So again, looking back at our stats, right, 3 to 5 minutes to escape is what we have. So we don't want to waste a lot of time if it's not within that incipient stage, if it's not within the confines of where it's starting. Then, and you don't feel comfortable using that fire extinguisher, just, you know, get yourself out, get your family out. And then lastly, hold the extinguisher upright during discharge. So these types, it's pretty intuitive because your nozzle is pointing this way, so you're going to be doing it this way automatically. But if you happen to have the type of extinguishers which have the nozzle, like the little rubbery nozzle, you want to make sure that, again, you're holding the extinguisher upright and you're just pulling up on that nozzle and using the nozzle. Reason being is because how the extinguishers are built and how they're built and to be made, and we'll look at a picture of that. So if you look at the very middle picture, that's the extinguisher that Valerie used that went for 14 seconds. But you'll notice that there is a pickup tube right here. And the way these extinguishers are all designed is that that tube is connected to the top. It travels down almost to the bottom, but it's about an inch off the bottom. And then the extinguisher is going to be filled about 3/4 full with the propellant that is the extinguishing agent, and then the rest of it's going to be filled with dry nitrogen. So that's the pressure. And so when you squeeze to discharge, what's happening is you're releasing that, and the propellant is now going up the tube and then out. And if you hold it this way or this way, if I try and do this, what's happening to my propellant? Propellant's going to start going to the side, right? And so I'm going to start discharging some of it, but ultimately what's going to happen is I'm going to discharge all the pressure out with a little bit of agent. I'm going to have a full canister of a lot of agent and no way to get it out. So that's why they have to be held upright whenever you use them. Again, just if it doesn't have a gauge, you want to push in on the little green test buttons. Some of them, I've seen a lot of the smaller extinguishers where the green test button is kind of on that front, and then the rest of them are on the top. Again, on the picture on the right, you can see Valerie's holding it in an upright position, and we got all of it out. We didn't have any issues with getting that propellant out. I actually didn't expect that extinguisher to work. Because
it's at least 20 years old.
Yeah, but it did.
And the original for that trailer.
Yes, but it worked. And so we were able to discharge it out. Did you guys notice too, all of that powder coming out, how messy that is? So it's going to create a mess, and it tastes funny, and it's about the consistency of flour. So it's going to get in and on in everything in the area that it's getting discharged in. A couple of alternatives that you could have, especially when it comes to stove top fires. If you're cooking on the stove top, let's say you're frying something, you're doing some chicken or you're doing a steak in there, the grease catches fire, and you end up with a grease fire on the top of your stove. Two things that you can do that are going to be way easier, way faster than using a fire extinguisher and a lot less mess. Number one, just have a lid available and just cover it with a lid. So if you have a pan that doesn't have a lid, you can also use a cookie sheet. So having a small cookie sheet available, and again, you're just sliding it over on top, and all you're doing is you're just smothering the fire. The last thing you want to do, and it's almost instinctively, I've seen this happen in the past, is people want to carry it and take it outside. Right? They want to, oh my gosh, this thing is on fire, so they're going to grab it and they're going to take it outside. You really risk injury with that. So and dropping it, perhaps because now all of a sudden the flames are licking your arms or your face, and then just basically creating a disaster. So leave it where it's at and just cover it with a cookie sheet or a lid if you can. That's the best way to put out any grease fire that's on the top of your stove. Exits. So emergency exits. This is a challenge. This is a challenge for anybody that's an RVer, because this is your, I'm assuming by regulations and everything else, is you're required to have 2 ways out of every room. This is your second way out if you don't have that door out of your bedroom. But I will tell you, if you haven't ever tried this, are you going feet first? Are you going head first? Are you going butt first? What are we doing? And when we opened these, what we noticed is they just kind of swing open. there's nothing holding it up and out of your way. So you're not only fighting to get out, but you're also fighting that window that's kind of hinged at the top. So it would be a challenge at best. And then we talked about, okay, now what do you have in front of you? A 6-foot drop, right? So again, feet first, head first. These are things to think about now versus in an emergency situation. So know the location of the emergency exits, not only for you, but if you have guests, you have grandkids, anybody else that's staying with you. I noticed one of the trainers out there's got a couple little bunks for the little ones, but make sure too that they know how to utilize these emergency exits if they have to use them. Most of them also are going to have a screen that has to come off first before you can do anything else. Make sure they open easily. Again, the very first one I think that we tried was, it was like, ooh, that's stuck.
It was tight.
It was, yeah. Keep the exit pathways to windows and doors clear, especially at night. Practice a fire escape plan for everyone staying in the RV. So not just yourselves, but making sure that, again, other people know what are your alternatives. Sleep with bedroom doors closed. This is huge. You don't think that little light door is going to do much, but I will guarantee you that little light door to your bedroom area, if you have one of those and you sleep with that bedroom door closed, is going to buy you the extra minutes that you would need to make that escape. This is also for homes as well, where the newer science and the new studies recently out are that to buy those extra minutes, even a simple hollow core door will buy you a lot of time. It's keeping that toxic smoke, that intense heat and fire away from you, and it's doing some of that compartmentalizing for you. But again, it doesn't do any good if we don't sleep with bedroom doors closed. So I sleep with my bedroom door closed now. I never used to, but now I do. So again, just a picture of using the emergency exits. Very first slide on the left, you can see Valerie's removing the screen. Second thing is starting to pull that lever and then pushing it open. This one's exciting because it also has this thing kind of hanging down and flapping that's going to probably stick you in the behind also when you're trying to exit. So again, this is a challenge, and I don't really know how to tell you how to be prepared for that, other than, if you want to try it to see if you can get out. The other thing that you might want to do, because we're talking about windows, a lot of times they're about this wide and about that tall, and then you've got that little metal edge at the bottom, is possibly throw a blanket or something over the bottom so that it's easier for you to slide out and you're not catching yourself on some of that metal trim. Beyond that,
Good luck.
good luck.
Hope you can get through the door.
Let's prevent those fires first, yes. So, carbon monoxide alarms. Has anybody ever heard their carbon monoxide alarm go off? Do you remember the sound that it makes?
Annoying.
Okay. They're different than a smoke alarm, right? So, just to refresh anybody's memory that hasn't heard them, or if you just have never heard one, take note of the carbon monoxide alarm. It makes a different sound. Actually, that's off. So it's 4 quick beeps. Beep, 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 beep. That's the sound that it makes. Distinctively different than a smoke alarm by intent. But that's going to be your carbon monoxide alarm. So the crazy thing about carbon monoxide, it's odorless, it's tasteless, it's invisible. You don't know it's in the air. Very deadly. And in fact, was it last year we had 4 high schoolers pass away in this area from carbon monoxide poisoning because they had a little salamander or something in the garage and we're heating it because it was kind of a cold, wintry time. And one of the gentlemen was having his buddies over for a sleepover. He actually got tired, went into his bedroom, went to sleep. He was safe, but all of his classmates passed away. So again, you don't even know what's happening to you. You have to have a working carbon monoxide alarm to know. All right, so what is it? It's formed by the incomplete combustion of fuels, so fossil fuels, i.e. propane. When exposed to CO gas, the CO molecules displace oxygen, ultimately leading to death. So how much? So if you're breathing in carbon monoxide, the red blood cells, your red blood cells are going to cling to the carbon monoxide 200 times stronger than it will to oxygen. So that's how much more that it will take over. Signs and symptoms, flu-like basically. So dull headaches, dizziness, weakness, nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, confusion, blurred vision, loss of consciousness, and ultimately, after loss of consciousness, you're going to have death. A lot of this it can either be acute, which means it happens rapidly, or it can be something over time. If it's a smaller carbon monoxide leak, you're like, oh man, I got a headache, in here, in this trailer. Every time I come in, I'm starting to get this headache. That should be a clue to you that something's going on. Again, odorless, tasteless, you don't see it, you don't know it's there. You have to have, making sure that, again, you have to have a working carbon monoxide alarm. If the CO alarms sound, immediately exit and get to fresh air. So get outside, call 911 from outside the RV, have the fire department respond and check. They'll come in with a tool that will check for carbon monoxide in your trailer. And hopefully track down also if you have a leak, where the leak's at. Okay, so smoke alarms.
Can I make a comment on the seal?
Yes, absolutely.
Valerie had one a while back that took your RV to at least one other dealer because their carbon monoxide detector was going off. The dealer couldn't make it do it again 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
They found the leaks.
So you actually had a leak.
Oh yeah,
Major.
it was a bad one from the factory.
Mm-hmm.
The welds on the water heater were bad, and so instantly we turned it on, and of course we've got a sniffer, and so we had it up against there, and you hear it. We closed the door, lit the water heater, and it started beep 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 beep. It was so fast. I can show you guys the video. We sent it to Dometic, and Dometic said the other dealer never found it, so they didn't warranty it. So it's one of those things where you've got to be real firm with it, and they took it back to the dealership 4 different times.
Wow.
Finally brought it to us, and we just told them, replace the water heater, and we did. And they sent the nicest note and said, for the first time ever, we've been able to enjoy our camper. So it was really
Wow.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, when it comes to life safety, you need to be your own advocate. I think is the other thing. You really do.
So we had one that it just kept going off,
Mm-hmm.
and we've always carried 2. One that goes with the trailer, and
Mhm.
we're kind of over safety conscious, but we have another portable one that wasn't going off,
Okay.
and so we kept taking it to the dealer. It wouldn't happen for them, but actually that's a camper we no longer have. But we always carry 2, and we always keep a window cracked
Mm-hmm.
when the gas is being
Mhm.
used.
Yeah, it's when we get to the propane slide, I was
Okay.
really, for me, this is all new knowledge because again, I told you my experience with campers is a little pop up, long time ago. But I didn't realize how much of your appliances, not just heating and the hot water, but how much is used with propane in an RV. So, smoke alarm. So again, just, you're right, different sound. So 3 slower beeps versus the 4 fast beeps. So just knowing and making note of those. I do believe that the smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms on the low batteries are the same, which is going to be the chirp, that little chirp sound like the little bird. So that's going to be the other sound that they make. If you're needing smoke alarms, first off, it's actually one of my last bullet points, but smoke alarms don't last forever. So smoke alarm life is 10 years. And after 10 years, they become unreliable. This is due to buildup of things. It can be grease, it can be dust, it can be insects. All of these things over time, and especially at that 10-year mark, make them where they become unreliable. And so after that point, you need to replace smoke alarms. I didn't realize there's an RV smoke alarm versus a regular house alarm. Did you know that there was a difference? And I was talking to a friend of mine who's Bernalillo County, one of the assistant fire chiefs over there. He's an RVer, and he's like, I didn't know there was a difference either. But there actually is. So there are ones that are approved for RV use, and they use dual sensor. You can see here on this one, it has the RV approved. And then also, the other nice thing is it's got that test and silent button. So if you get an alarm that happens because, let's say you're cooking and you smoke things up, instead of yanking it off the wall and throwing it in the drawer, you can just reach up and you can push that button and silence it. And then what it'll do is it'll silence that alarm for a brief time. So what is dual sensors? Well, dual sensor means ionization, so more sensitive to small smoke particles such as those from flaming fires, grease fires, paper burning in a wastebasket. Ionization is most of the ones that you're going to see in a traditional home are going to be ionization type smoke alarms. They're the ones that say, oh, they have a little ion chamber in them and they have radioactive material within that chamber. That's the ionization. The other type is photoelectric, so this is going to be more sensitive to larger smoke particles, such as those from smoldering fires and cigarettes. These type that are RV approved have both, so you're getting the best of both as far as coverage goes. When you test these, press and hold the test button. So all of them are going to have that little button on it. And a lot of times when we try to test them, we might push it in and nothing happens. And the reason is you have to actually push it in and hold it for about 3 to 4 seconds, and then the alarm test will go. You want to make sure that you're doing this, of course, you know, the standard across the United States within the fire service is test your smoke alarms monthly. How many of us actually do that, right? We don't. But make sure that you are testing it, you know, on occasion, I guess would be the best thing that I could tell you. And especially if you're getting ready for a season and you're getting ready for a trip or something like that, make sure you're testing them before you go out. Again, also, if it's been a while and you're not sure when those 9 bolts have been replaced, put in some fresh 9 bolts. Your smoke alarm, again, talked about this, 10 years or older, it needs to be replaced. Propane tank safety, I got a lot on this one right here. So, again, knowledge for me, as I was kind of doing a lot of research on this presentation, is realizing that there's 2 different types of tanks that you might be carrying, depending on your RV style. You have what would be the portable type, which are these right here, and then you have ones that are mounted. Can you guys tell me what type of RVs you might see?
Motorhomes.
Motorhomes. So the driving kind are going to have this. Are we going to have this in any of the pull behinds? So they're all going to be the portable tanks. Okay, good to know. RV propane. Briefly talked about this. used for a lot of things within that RV. So the heating, the central air, possibly, and a lot of times they're dual, so they're going to use propane, or they may use electricity, depending if you're plugged in, or I guess, right? So some of those things are going to be dual, and some of them are maybe just propane. Indoor, outdoor cooking appliances, fridges and coolers, and your hot water heaters. So a lot of appliances are using this. Keep the tank in a proper position. Proper position is, as you see right there in that picture, upright. So you don't want to carry or haul these things around sideways, because it fits better within that compartment, and I got a bunch of other stuff in there. Make sure they're upright, because it is a liquid that's within the tank. Inspect the tank regularly for rust and corrosion. Portable tanks, again, the one that we see on that trailer. Portable tanks must be requalified 12 years after the date of manufacture. So they actually have a stamp on them when it was manufactured. After 12 years, again, this is a cylinder that's holding a lot of pressure, so you want to make sure that these are retested by the proper people that would fill your tanks, and those date stamps are going to be found on the collar, which is going to be this upper portion right here. So the date stamps of manufacturer is going to be found on that collar. So if we look at this one, does it have a date stamp on it somewhere? Possibly 5/22, I'm gonna guess. So May of 22 was when this particular tank was manufactured. So in 12 years, right, we would want this tank to be, as long as it, hadn't been dented, rusted, or any other, had other issues, and it's still usable, and you wanted to continue to use it, you would want to have it retested and then stamped in there for a new time. I don't know how long those tests last for once they're retested. But again, also upright position, not storing them this way, putting them in a compartment because they carry an extra and it doesn't really fit this way in the compartment. So make sure, again, they're upright. Trace the lines from the propane tanks as far as you can, looking for any cracking or damage. Especially northern New Mexico, we're kind of dry here. So dry rot with tires, but also with a lot of the hoses. We can easily get a little more dry and more cracking than what we might see if we're in another part of the U.S. Inspect all vents. So each one of these appliances that we have, heating, water heater, the back of the refrigerator, they all have vents in them. Make sure that those vents are clean and that they're able to vent properly, right? So if we get nesting within a compartment or some area where we have some of these, have you guys ever seen nests or build up within some of these vents?
Roof vents.
So, roof vents.
A lot of roof vents.
Okay.
And in the heaters, you get
Mud daubers.
mud daubers.
Mud daubers.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Not around here so much, but they'll come through with.
Okay. So they bring them with them. They
Yes.
were already, probably from Texas. So again, just making sure, again, a lot of this is good common sense, but just making the effort to check and go through everything. Driving with propane tanks off is recommended. What I read is this is a bit controversial.
It is.
And you guys all agree. Reason being is because why?
Well, people want their fridges to be cooling, and
Right.
yeah.
Right, you got stuff in the fridge and in the freezer, and you don't want it to go without. So, anyway, what I read was that is the official recommendation, is to drive with your tanks off. If you do choose to run your tanks open while you're driving, you just realize that you know the risk, right? So you realize that that's just part of the risk that you're taking. But that comes down to an individual decision. So it's good to know that the article I read was true. It is very controversial.
And upon theory, the OPD valves are supposed to shut off if there's a big leak.
Okay.
Does not always do it. I've seen
Okay.
one with a 3/8 line all the way broke off and
Mm-hmm.
still letting gas out.
Wow, okay.
The guy
And-
hit a rock somewhere.
And I did, in fact, I think the article that I was reading also was promoting some sort of a device. I don't remember the name, but it was some sort of a device that if it detected flow, like abnormal flow, that it would cut off or do something.
Upon theory, the valve there does.
That should.
If it's full, you can open the valve and nothing comes out.
Right, yes, until you hit that with that quick connect, right? I don't know what's that called? Connecting device there.
Oh, the pigtail?
Oh, OPD?
That one?
No, the new ones are OPD.
Yeah, the newer ones where it's got a lot of a thicker thread,
Yeah.
and so it only takes a few
OPD, I
turns
think
and
it
it's
is.
on, and then as it's on, it also pushes in, I believe, so. Maybe an extra part, I don't know.
Oh, it's just brand new, so
Okay.
for shipping, I suppose.
Alright, so, propane safety and recalls. Valerie wanted to make sure that we talk about recalls, because again, I think this is an issue that you guys might be seeing. And these are some pictures that she sent me. I'm gonna guess, and I'm gonna have you speak to this, but I'm gonna guess that's the back of a refrigerator?
Yes, that's a cooling unit that came out of one of my customers' trailers. And anytime that you see that ammonia there, that's the yellow that's leaking out.
It's actually sodium chromate so that it gives it a color.
Okay, so letting you know where the leak is and that it is leaking. So by design, okay.
Carry on, Val.
Go for it.
And the biggest thing, basically on an RV refrigerator, there's ammonia, hydrogen, some people will tell you water. When you dilute ammonia, it's with water, so I don't know that you count water. And the sodium chromate is like an indicator so that you can see the color. The problem with refrigerators is the hydrogen in there. There's only 400 pounds of hydrogen, and the Hindenburg did blow up.
So very flammable.
So very flammable.
Yes. So again, some extra cautions with RVs that you may not have in a home or a residence, but certainly you will not have here. So one of the biggies, obviously, check for recalls.
And one thing that a lot of people don't know, hydrogen fires, you can hear them roar, but you can't see the flame, so,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Good to know.
I used to recharge. We had a leak, and you had no idea where the roar was coming from.
Okay.
And the only way to get it shut off was to get to the valve and shut it off.
Wow. But you couldn't see where the flame was.
I had no
Oh my
idea where
gosh.
the flame was guessing.
Yeah. Well, again, probably the best takeaway for us, make sure that we aren't having these issues. We're not having these issues by making sure that we're doing our safety checks, and also we're looking for recalls.
Or if you smell ammonia.
Ammonia, okay.
Sometimes you'll get smell in the refrigerator.
Now, would any of this, I guess carbon monoxide, this is not gonna produce any carbon monoxide, so you can't depend on your carbon monoxide alarm to
Not at all.
go off, or your smoke alarm's not gonna go off, because it's not gonna detect those things.
Right. And the leaks that are where that yellow is, right directly to the right of where that yellow is actually a burner. So that you have flame and hydrogen if it's a big leak.
Wow. There's a slide at the very end that I'm going to have you point out what you think is the cause of that fire. There it is. What do you think? I can tell you right now, that's not an engine fire.
That's actually not from the refrigerator though.
No. What do
If
you
it was
think
from the
that's
refrigerator, it would be, well, the vent that's just in front of the tire and up,
Here?
that one there is the vent. If it was from the refrigerator, that would be black.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where that one came from.
Yeah.
Kids playing with matches.
But it burned through the wall unit right there. That could also be, there's a lot of factors here. Obviously, we can say, hey, this is not from the engine compartment, but also we can also assume they were driving down the road, right? So if we're driving down the road going 55 plus miles an hour, what are those flames doing? Right, they're going behind and going to the back. So you know, it could have easily started possibly in the front portion of the living quarters or something like that. But again, some of the takeaways are, you know, things that we can look for if we're on the road, right? So engine fires. How do we stop engine fires? Well, maintenance, making sure that our engines are running well, making sure that we're not leaking fluids, because even if you have leaking coolant, it will actually catch fire. A lot of people don't realize that, but coolant will burn and it will catch fire. You'll see it a lot of times after a front end collision. If somebody hits that front end and you have a hot engine and all of a sudden now you've hit coolant lines and they've broken open, you'll see that instant flame, and that's a lot of times it's from the coolant. Wheel bearings, obviously another thing. Making sure their wheel bearings are in really good shape, making sure they're packed well, and they're ready to hit the road. Because again, think about the turning that thing is doing, right? And for miles upon miles upon miles, you add summer temperatures on top of that. So making sure their wheel bearings are in good shape. Flat, low tires, we talked a little bit about that, how that creates friction, especially a low tire. Parking brake engaged while driving. Another cause can be that, something as simple as this, and just not realizing we're driving off and we forgot to release the parking brakes. Alright, so now, let's say we've gotten there, so while we're parked, refrigerator failures. We've talked about that. What's the thing that we can do there? Making sure that our refrigerator's in good repair, making sure it doesn't have a recall. Electrical shorts, jostling down the road, right? Especially even with 12-volt systems that these have, can cause arcs and sparks because things start to get loose over time just because of the constant jarring that's going to happen. So making sure that our electrical systems are in good repair, making sure that we didn't have that rat over the winter chew wires and cause an area where we could have a short. Unattended cooking, briefly talked about that. Unattended cooking. So it's not cooking in general, but it's when we leave it unattended and then things kind of get out of control. All right, so lastly, home is where you park it, according to Foster Huntington. Questions that you guys have for me?
I had one. At some point in time, somebody told me before you fire extinguisher, you should turn it upside down and wrap it. Because sometimes
yes.
the white powder will...
Absolutely, yes. If you have a, I don't know if you saw me earlier, I was taking this probably Smithsonian here, and I was
That's
doing
our
this because I
kitchen
wanted to
fire
see if I felt any movement. And
Hope you don't have a
I do now, but I didn't at first, but I can feel it moving. And so what you can do for your fire extinguishers is just occasionally take them out, again, making sure we aren't having to struggle with those straps. So take it out, turn it upside down, give it a shake. If you've got a like a little rubber mallet, you can tap it with a rubber mallet. A lot of times you'll feel the propellant fall. So again, it's like, and I'm feeling this one moving around. You guys can feel that too. I'll pass it around, but you can feel it moving around in there, and that's what it should feel like. But what happens again if we, let's say this is in a compartment and sitting this way, or it's sitting this way, and we're heading down the road, and we're going for 1,000 miles doing this, that powder is going to compress, and then it can cause it not to work well because it's so compressed. So on occasion, what you want to do is get these out and just shake them again, or just hit it with a rubber mallet a little bit and loosen that powder back up. And then that would be another maintenance thing that you can do with fire extinguishers, but you can kind of feel that.
Where do you get fire extinguishers
Reservice?
reserviced?
You know, that's, there are specific companies that do fire extinguisher sales and service, and that would be my recommendation. I don't know, like in the Albuquerque area, if you guys have anybody out here
There's
that does them.
not
but-
out here. I've got a company from Albuquerque,
Yeah.
and I can get the name off of our fire extinguisher
don't-
for you. I forget what they're called.
I don't think there's anybody even in Santa Fe that does it, as far as I know, so.
And is it best to get them resurfaced or dispose of them and buy new?
You know, it depends. It depends on what you have. So, this one, right, this is not reserviceable.
Yeah,
This is a
okay.
one and done, right? So if you have this type of extinguisher, and as we know, this one's probably, I don't know, this may be a 10-second extinguisher. But if it's working right, and you know, my little green tab is pushing down, I got my pin, I can tell it's not been damaged. I can tell that this is, you know, fairly new. It's probably got a date stamp on here somewhere. It's gonna be good, right? And so, and again, probably the only thing besides looking at, checking it over, also just kind of taking it upside down, shaking it around a little bit and feeling the powder, that's gonna be fine. So to answer your question, do you reservice these? These are gonna be replaced.
Right.
That
It's the other
depends
difference.
on you,
Uh-huh.
on what you have as far as your setup goes. So I'm assuming this one has a little compartment somewhere in the trailer that this size is gonna be specific, it's gonna be specific to this size. If you wanna keep it in that compartment, then obviously you would need to replace it with this type. So that would just be a replacement one. And if you think, you know what, this has been in the trailer for some time now, I'm not comfortable with knowing that this is really testing it well, then just replace them. These are not that much. They're probably less than $20,
I
I'm
think
assuming.
it's at around 20.
Yeah. They're not gonna be that much money. Yeah, and there's one right there. The other ones, like these type that are, I would not resurface this one. Let's say this was newer. Let's say it was newer though.
Do that one there.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you why. You see how this top is plastic? Over time, that plastic gets brittle. You remember the pickup tube? I've seen extinguishers not work because what happened was the pickup tube snapped inside and it was just rattling around inside the container. Obviously, without the pickup tube, these don't work. So if you have a plastic top, then you also have that plastic pickup tube. And so those plastic components just deteriorate over time, and then it wouldn't, to me, it would not be worth resurfacing.
Resurfacing.
Yeah. So I just replace them. The ones that you do want to resurface would be the ones like this where you have the metal tops. So this is obviously way overkill for an RV, size-wise. This is for their business. But ones like this, and you find smaller ones like this. Amorex is this particular brand. They sell the smaller ones that are a little bit bigger than this, but they're also have the metal tops on them, and then just has a little stubby nozzle. But it also has that metal pickup tube. Those ones you could have redone if you had that type in your RV. This is another one where we talked about, you know, making sure that we're holding it upright, right? So extinguishers need to work this way, hold them upright. This one, you grab the nozzle, you pull the nozzle up. You don't use it like this. So, but this type, I would recommend that they be that. Another thing, real quickly, our example of an electrical short. So my understanding from this scenario, so what should this actually look like? This is going to be the box that's going to be on the side of the RV that you're going to plug into. So you're going to go from your pole, and then you're going to plug in this end, but you'll notice this end has this locking ring. If you just plug in, let's see if we can get this plugged in. but we just plug it in and we don't use the locking ring, there's a possibility of having a little wiggle. And the little wiggle is where we start developing the shorts, because you got electricity flowing, but you don't have a good solid connection. And so that's where you can have an issue. So if you have these type, which are the newer models, make sure that you're just taking that extra minute or 30 seconds and you're connecting it with that ring and tightening that ring down. See if I can get this tightened. And now I've got a solid connection. So again, it's not a lot of effort, but it could cause, you know, the outcome could be devastating if you don't take the time to use these things properly. Kind of goes back to read those owner's manuals, because it probably will talk about this, but if you don't know what's that thing for, and you don't realize it, again, causing yourself problems with heartache that you don't need to. Okay, so back to this one, you can see the issues. This would have been in the RV unit. This would have been the plug-in. It's got the ring. The ring obviously wasn't used, and so the way this sat, probably doing something like that. You get some jostling around. This is on the outside, maybe you're inside, you're bouncing around in the trailer, walking or whatever, and it's moving, you're wiggling, you're causing a short. And so as you cause that short, these are the results.
Loose connections make heat.
Yes, they do. Absolutely, they do. And even when it comes to residential fires, one of our top causes is electrical. And the issue is, one, overloading them, and two, having shorts within the electrical systems. Not having good connections where we're connecting wires, especially with outlets and things like that. So these absolutely can be a major fire cause. So again, going back to just making sure we're using things properly. Okay, so anything else? Any other questions that we have? Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned driving with your parking brake on.
Yes.
So travel trailers, fifth wheels have a breakaway switch, but if that gets pulled, then that will make too much heat on your brakes because your brakes are locked up.
Oh.
And Ralph can tell you a story about one that
We actually had a guy that he was pulling with a semi. He left when he was hooking up in Albuquerque, he found the breakaway switch wire, did not know what it was for, called his mentor somewhere back east. His mentor didn't answer the phone, so he rolled it up, put it in the glove box. When a police officer stopped him, he was just right over here off the highway. Police officer actually brought him over to here. I picked up one of the point and shoot thermometers, went back over, and well, I didn't actually. I went over, we actually brought it back over here. By the time we got it here, the end of the lug nuts were still over 600 degrees.
Wow.
At the end of the lug nuts.
That's
a triple axle trailer. It was very costly to
Yeah.
repair.
That's a lot of heat.
Yes.
And again, you know, it's avoidable. But what's the takeaway there too? It's somebody not knowing, right? So well, it's an RV. I'll just hook up
And he
and
had
go.
a semi, so he did. Hell, that truck didn't know he had a trailer behind him.
Yeah.
So it just kept pulling.
Yeah.
And even on the tires and wheels, and when you were talking low pressure, we had one years ago that probably started about a couple hundred yards up the road here, had a flat, was running along, and there was little spots of fire from there all the way to TA because it was catching on fire going down the road. The steel belted radio was so hot it did it from there to there.
That reminds me. So I noticed as I pulled up today,
Yes, and I was guilty of that one.
right behind here, yeah, we have a little.
I was burning weeds,
Okay.
and I was trying to stay away from the fence. Weed burner was guaranteed at least 6 feet from the fence
Okay.
because I knew there was a bunch of dead weeds in it.
Well,
Somehow or other,
it happens.
yes, it started.
Right? And it's that time of year.
And if I could have got my hand just that far under the fence, I could have kept it from going, but I couldn't get through.
It happens. I didn't know if it was that, or a lot of times when we see them on the side of the road, it's from somebody either throwing sparks from failed brakes,
Yep.
landing in the grass, or
This
something
one was
like that
me.
as well. That, okay.
So we had a customer one time that pulling a fifth wheel, you know, you have blowouts on a fifth wheel, you don't even know that you have one. And he kept driving the trailer until when somebody finally had him pull over, the rims on the tires were gone, the rims were flat.
Wow.
He had been dragging it that far and didn't even know,
Just don't even know.
know it, so. But that's sparking the whole way too, with metal against the pavement.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And again, it's like, you know, a lot of these things can be avoided if we're checking before we get on the road, right? So
Tire monitors
not
are
have
good.
some of those issues. Here is some of the statistics we talked about. It delves a little bit deeper in some. If anybody wants some of these, a copy of this, you're welcome to it. And then I'll leave extras, whatever we have left here for you guys to just, you know, if anybody wants to look at these, and again, some light reading in the evening, some good statistical data, but again, the interesting takeaways. One, there's not a lot of fire safety information out there when it comes to RVers, and we are becoming a society where RVing is becoming more and more popular post-COVID, and just people don't want to stay, you know, the traditional home anymore is not necessarily the place, right, for us. So also I have a couple of other sheets here. The U.S. Fire Administration also, this was the only sheet that I really found from a kind of a fire source that actually talked a little bit about RV and recreational safety, fire safety. It talks more on carbon monoxide and carbon monoxide issues. So if this is something, again, that you guys are interested in reading, you know, I've got copies here for you. And then lastly, this is our own, which is carbon monoxide safety, talks a little bit more about things that you can do if you want to be, you know, a little more cognizant of carbon monoxide. So,
Even on carbon monoxide, I one time screwed up. We were up camping somewhere up north, I don't know. And we're notorious for folding up our chairs and leaning them up against the side of the trailer. Well, our carbon monoxide tester was going off in the middle of the night.
cover
Got
the
up,
vent.
and it was in front of the heater. Melted a little bit of the chair. And
Okay. It's things to think about, right?
Yes.
Again, just things that RVing life, you have to think outside the box and things like that, right?
your house, the vent goes out the roof, so you don't
Yeah.
ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you know, it's right there with an RV, so some things to think about. Well, thank you guys for attending, and good luck on your travels, whether you're coming or going or just staying put. You know, again, thank you.
Thank you. Very good.